Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where we break down the commodity space for both new and experienced investors. My name is Jesse Day, and before we dive in, standard disclaimer: nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver, a company advancing one of the largest high-grade undeveloped precious metal assets in BC's Golden Triangle. Mr. Shawn Khunkhun, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you here. And as with all new guests, we like to start with the origin story. I've seen several interviews with you, and I know you're very passionate about the precious metals space. So could you talk to us about your background in that area, how you got involved with gold and silver, and how that led you to becoming the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver?
Sure. You listen. I grew up in Canada, born and raised, but my family is from India, and so I grew up around gold. Gold was given as gifts at weddings. It was and it was been passed down generation over generation. Listen, growing up and being educated in the West. Didn't really understand the historical relevance of gold. It wasn't taught to me. It wasn't educated with, in the Austrian schools. So for me, just out of a necessity to find employment after school, got by chance, by luck, got into the junior mining business at 22 years old. And then as I started traveling around the world and going to conferences and listening to, and also it was a time where central banks had stopped selling gold going into the end of the 1990s and actually started becoming net buyers of gold. So there were people like Eric Sprott or Frank Giustra who had made a note of this new development and had written some papers and were becoming to get vocal in and around the year 2000, 2001, 2002. I got into the business in 2004. And so as I go around the world and go to these different conferences and listen to speakers like Rick Rule talk about sound money and talk about this new development of central bank buying, and then also the origins of my parents and understanding history, I finally grasped it in my mid to late 20s. And it was at a time where the rest of the world grasped it too. The gold price had gone from 300 to 1900. And I was working for a junior mining company that started from inception, and we grew it to a $1.5 billion market cap, raising, I quarterbacked about $500 million of equity financings, and just got to learn the participants and got a passion for discovery, development, production. And my biggest takeaway was that when you get into a bull market, and what I experienced was silver outperforms at the later stages of a bull market. And I experienced that in 2011. And then as I went back to study history, whether it was 1980 or at different times throughout history, starting to understand the silver to gold ratio, I've become wildly bullish on silver. And there's all host of other things that have happened in the silver market that have made me want to double down on that thesis.
Well, let's hone in a little bit more specifically on silver. Several guests I've had on the show echo your sentiments about the silver space. And I've heard you mention before, silver presents a very strong opportunity at present. So talk to us about what you're seeing in the silver sector and the main tailwinds you think make silver such an attractive value at this point in time.
So I don't want to bore your guests with things they've already heard about, photovoltaics and solar and all these stats that they're already wildly aware of. And let's skip all of that. From a practical standpoint, from a mining standpoint, for every 1 ounce of gold we're mining 8 ounces of silver. But the ratio is more like 10 times that. It's 80 to 1, not 8 to 1. So from a historical perspective, the ratio fell somewhere to 15 to 1 historically. And so I just think that we're at a point right now where there are very few pure silver mines. So there's no way that we're, as an industry, going to be able to turn on production. It's not going to happen there. And so that's, I think, look, the setup is great. You've got huge deficits, and places like Mexico have just banned open pit mining, new open pit mines. So the places that we've gone to get silver are making it increasingly difficult to get it, and there's more applications for it. So the case for silver has never been stronger.
I want to read you a comment left on my channel, which is very typical whenever silver is discussed as a big opportunity. And the comment is this: I've been hearing this same story for years. No one can stop JP Morgan and the rest of that group from shorting silver forever. What is your response?
Bullshit. And look, for years, what does that mean? Just because it's not happening on your timetable. I believe that, look, you know, JP Morgan is a custodian of metals. So, that's a far more complicated discussion than face value. But okay, so let's go to suppression, metal price suppression, whether you believe it or you don't believe it. Um, I go to the Battle of Waterloo. I don't know if you're familiar with that battle between the British and the French, but there was a moment in that battle where, the world was convinced that the French were winning. And we're going long French bonds and we're shorting British bonds. But that's not, the truth got out. And I really believe that what we're seeing in the silver market, what we're seeing in the gold market, we can draw some parallels to the Battle of Waterloo. And what I'm saying is the truth will come out, and I'm not concerned what happens in the short run. Rick Rule's got a great line about the stock market, in the short term being a popularity contest or a voting machine. But in the long run, it's a weighing machine or a scale. And so I think fundamentals, facts, the truth, in the long run prevails.
I absolutely agree with you there. I think it's all about time horizon. People are expecting to make a lot of money in a short period of time, and that leads them to making these type of comments. Because I'll tell you what, I get a lot of them. You did mention photovoltaics earlier. Obviously, yes, that's a big theme when it comes to discussing silver. It's growing use in solar panels, but silver is used in so many different industrial capacities. I'm wondering how much of silver's value moving forward you think will be set by industrial demand.
See, I think that, well, first of all, I think we have to talk about solar because it's going from being, you know, 1% of the market and it could potentially be 50% of the market. So that's meaningful. That is material. I do not believe the industrial appetite, even though it's like 70, historically it's been 70%. I actually think what's going to send silver surging is it being viewed as a monetary metal. And if you go back and you study history and you look at any time that silver's caught a bid, it's not. I'd actually argue, and people won't like this, but I'd actually argue that silver is overvalued if we're talking about it as an industrial metal. It's the only industrial metal that I know of that gets used meaningfully that's measured in ounces per ton and not pounds, or a larger measurement. So I think from in the industrial standpoint, silver doesn't intrigue me. What it intrigues me on is it has been used for money for 5,000 years. And what's going to cause the silver price to surge is, investors going to it for a hedge against, monetary devaluation, inflation, and a store of value and sound money.
And do you think that's where we're headed coming up here? Obviously, we're seeing unprecedented times when it comes to the economy and financial markets. The level of government deficits in America and many places around the world is absolutely ballooning. We're seeing out of control spending. Debt across the board when it comes to the consumer as well is ever expanding. And it feels like the debt-based fiat system that we've been in for the last several decades is in jeopardy. But then again, that seems to be a reoccurring theme. People will point to the fact that, people always bring up the fact that this system has to come to an end. How do you think this does all end? And what sort of events do you think could trigger a flight to safety in the form of gold and silver?
Well, I just think that the one constant we've had when it comes to currencies is, fiat currencies, they all go to zero. And, gold has been something that the world has always, gone to as a store of wealth. And so we will come back to that moment. And in that moment, gold is reserved for the uber wealthy. It's the king's metal, whereas silver is the gentleman's metal. And there's 8 billion gentlemen, out there in terms of very, very few kings. And so I just think that that's what makes me wildly bullish on silver price, and also understanding that forget silver. We could be talking about copper. We could be talking about almost any metal under the sun. We as an industry, and I'm saying this as an industry insider, we're reactive. There's not a lot of proactive, and it's because capital is scarce and it's expensive. So there's underinvestment in exploration, development, project pipelines, and I really think that we're on a setup right now where there's going to be a massive shortage of metal, and look, at some point, whether it's $60, $80, $100 silver, we could get a little bit of what I would refer to as, I don't know, recycling, or taking grandpa's silverware out of the safe, and consumers might trade that in because they think $100 is a good price. But I think the type of monetary event that we're coming into is something where I don't think people will want to trade in their gold or silver for currency.
I completely agree with you there. You did mention Mexico earlier, and obviously the jurisdictional risk that it now presents, and the potential reduction in silver supply that also represents. How much does that point to the fact about the importance of more silver development and production taking place in stable jurisdictions?
Unfortunately, where these metals are found, you know, it's we don't get to pick and choose. We don't get to. I can't say, hey, I really want to focus on more silver exploration in Canada. Canada's not home, vastly across the country to silver, right? There's a few pockets, Northwest BC, Yukon, are places where there is a lot of silver. But yeah, no, I think to your point, if you look at the silver industry and you look at silver equities, they've done really bad. If you look at the big silver miners, they've gone to gold, they've gone to base metals, and they've hollowed themselves out, and they're no longer silver miners. So as investors, how do we get exposure to silver when there's no pure silver miners left? The only company that I'm aware of that has got any resemblance of silver is Hecla Mining. And it's one of the reasons that over the last couple of years, Hecla has done well. Now, if we really examine their business, not only do they have a high degree of silver focus, but they are in Canada and they are in the United States. And investors really appreciate that. Most silver projects are found in Argentina, in Peru, in Mexico. Bolivia has been challenging. It's got a good abundance of silver. But the silver is a rare metal. It is, and again, like the biggest silver production comes as a byproduct, and again, that you can't just focus on turning up. You need primary silver mines, and there's a shortage of them.
Well, I think that's a great segue into discussing Dolly Varden Silver specifically. So maybe we'll start, for those watching who might be unfamiliar with the company. Could you give us the 10,000-foot overview?
Yeah, I think what's important to talk about when you talk Dolly Varden is you need to look at where it is, and it's in an area that is the richest area on the planet for gold and silver. And I say that as an industry insider and working throughout the world and investing throughout the world. The richest 20 kilometers on this planet for gold and silver is in the Golden Triangle, and it's around Brucejack and it's around KSM. It's for size, it's for grade. We've got a rich history up north, despite having challenging weather and glaciers and a lack of infrastructure. We've been producing metal since the 1860s. And what we've seen in the last 6 years is we've seen billions invested into bringing in the infrastructure, bringing in hydroelectric, bringing in roads, bringing in deep water seaports. We've seen the glaciers recede significantly. I'm measuring our property. We're seeing hundreds of meters of retreat on an annual basis. So that's opening up new exploration corridors. So the area is rich. There's been about 1 billion ounces of silver discovered and about 160 million ounces of gold. I'm not going to talk about the copper and the rest of it, but there's a whole host of other metals. My project specifically dates back to 1906. I took over in 2020. So I've been running Dolly Varden for 3 years. And in that 3 years, my team has grown a 40 million ounce high grade resource to 140 million ounce resource. And the question that I have for my team is, can we get to 1 billion ounces? That's the question. And I don't know if we'll ever get there. Can we go to 300 million? Can we go to 500 million? These are the questions we're trying to answer. And the way we're getting there is by buying neighboring mines. So we're doing accretive M&A transactions. And then this past summer, I put $20 million into the ground, embarking on the most aggressive drill program in the history of the property. And it was surgical, it was calculated, it was on time, it was on budget, and I've got 40,000 meters of drilling to report. So those are the catalysts. That's how we're going to grow the mineral inventory. And for anybody watching, the way I want you to think about this is like this. You can go out today and you can take possession of an ounce of silver. And that'll cost you a few dollars over the spot price. So if we've got $22 spot silver, you can go get an ounce today for $25. What I'm offering you and what silver companies are offering you is you can buy ounces in the ground for pennies on the dollar. And if we grow those ounces through discovery, that increases your exposure, and the company will go up in value. And right now, on average, companies are trading at around, call it 50, 60, 70 cents per ounce in the ground. In bull markets, when silver becomes relevant, it's not unusual for companies to trade between $3 and $4 an ounce. So even if companies don't grow their mineral inventory through exploration, we should see a revaluation as we move into a precious metals bull market. And the stage is set. I've been studying this and investing in these types of companies for 20 years. I think that moment is around the corner. I think that moment could come as early as next spring or sooner.
Well, let's hone in on some details for your Kitsault Valley project. Talk to us a little bit more about the land package, the infrastructure in place, the jurisdiction itself, anything you think investors should be taking note of when it comes to that project.
Look, we've got a really low operational cost, exploration cost per meter. And the reason for that is I can barge heavy equipment up, tidewater. Once we barge the heavy equipment up to site, we actually control where the tidewater location is. So we have all the surface rights. That's where we hold our camp. It's very strategic from future development standpoint. So we control where equipment is brought in. We've got a road to our project. And not only do we have a road, but we have something called a special use permit. So again, it's not just about endowment. It's not just about silver in the ground. It's about having these strategic elements of the tidewater control, the special use permit on the road. We've got hydroelectric, clean, low cost, some lowest cost hydroelectric in the world that comes just to the south of the project. We've got roads that come right into site, and those roads take us out to a regional airport. And so we've got tremendous infrastructure. There's a highway that's just to the north of the property. So we've got great infrastructure. We've got a 15-kilometer trend. And we've identified seven major deposits along this 15-kilometer trend. But there's a third of the trend that hasn't been looked at. And the reason for that is there was a border sitting in between the deposits that we consolidated. We bought the neighboring deposit, and it's opened up an exploration corridor that's never been looked at. And there's this idea that we have that we validated. It's the idea of a repeating pattern, a periodicity. So every kilometer and a half, there's another major deposit. So we suspect we're going to fit 3 deposits in that gap zone. And what I've done is I've put together one of the best exploration teams in the business. And this team has taken some of these deposits. For example, I'll focus on one of the deposits called Wolf. The Wolf deposit started as a small, discrete surface showing. And what we've done is we've now got 1 kilometer of strike length. And where we're seeing a lot of growth is we're stepping out, projecting where we think that vein is going, and we're drilling. The last drill results were approximately 30 meters, so almost 100 feet of 12, 13 ounce per ton silver, call it 400 gram per ton silver. So we're getting these wide, high grade. And what's important about that from a mining standpoint, if we were to go to develop this and mine it, and when we get into a price environment that's conducive for silver production, I think we're at a time right now where the best thing a silver miner or a gold miner can do is not sell at these low prices. But our strategy is just to build up a large resource so that when silver gets properly valued, we're maximizing that opportunity for shareholders. But my point here is when we go to mine it, it's potentially amenable to bulk mining, which is a lower cost mining method, which is very, very, very important. And so we've got a great project to keep it very, very simple. It's where size meets grade in a safe jurisdiction.
Great. Well, you mentioned the large drill program that you did. So you touched on the results there. Maybe if you could expand on any notable results from that drill project, and also what your plans are for the future. What is Dolly Varden Silver planning for the rest of 2023 and into 2024?
Yeah, in terms of expanding on results, the way I would approach it is we've got this endowment, we've got this 140 million ounce silver endowment, and we are strategically trying to step out, extend, and expand known veins. So that's the strategy. The strategy is the best place to find silver is next to a silver mine, and we've got 2 past producing silver mines on site. There's a lot of silver left behind. We're finding more. We're growing these deposits. They're open at depth. They're open along strike. So, my thinking is what we've been doing at Dolly Varden since I took over, and I took over, this was a $20 million company. It's valued at $200 million today at a time where a lot of my peers are falling and going lower. So why have we been able to grow 10x before the silver market even takes off? And the reason for that is, in my opinion, is simple. We've been able to grow our mineral inventory. So we're going to keep doing what we have been doing that's led to success. I see too many companies as they grow change things up, and it's a disaster. I've been part of companies like that. We're going to keep the culture that brought us here, the entrepreneurial nature, the hardworking nature, the relentless nature of growing the deposit and growing the investor base will continue. And we're not taking our foot off the gas. We're actually accelerating right now when a lot of our peers don't have the budget to do that. So that's what differentiates us. And in terms of catalysts between now and Christmas, 40,000 meters of drilling to report. And to put that into context, that's 4 times what we drilled in 2021. So it's a lot of drill results. It's a lot of drill holes. And, I look at it like a drill hole is like a lottery ticket. And I'm giving my shareholders 100 lottery tickets. And, your odds go up the more shots you take. We took a lot of shots this year, and the results that we have put out have been exceptional. So we've had great results at Wolf. We've had great results a kilometer and a half away at what's known as the Torbrit deposit. So, more of the same. And I'm expecting to continue to grow this deposit.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Shawn. It's been a ton of fun chatting with you. I will put links to the Dolly Varden Silver website as well as social media in the description below for people who want to learn more and keep up to date with the company. Before I let you go, do you have any final words you'd like to share on Dolly Varden?
Um, not particularly. The only thing I would say is, like, I would, for all viewers, go out and get yourself some silver. If you don't own any physical, start there. And once you start to understand, why, and again, reach out to us. We've got contact information on our website. We're active on Twitter at Silver Varden. We love talking to shareholders. We love talking about the industry. So, just we're here to serve you, and we've got a lot of experience, and happy to pass that along.
Yeah, I love that message to get your hands on some silver. If you haven't done so before, it's a magical feeling to have actual real money in your hands. Well, thank you once again, Shawn, for joining us and sharing all your knowledge with our audience.
And just before I let you go, this whole interview I've been holding, I think I've got about 9 ounces of silver in my hand here. It's a cylinder, and it's got actually 6 silver bullets in here. So
Oh, that's cool.
just playing with this fidget spinner in my hand here. So
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Shawn. And
practice what I preach.
yeah, absolutely. And thanks for coming on, and definitely look forward to keeping up on the company.
Okay, thank you so much.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.